Good morning, all. Today we are going to learn a lesson three questions. Unit 2, it is from, and the lesson name is Three Questions. Here, the lesson is written by a famous Russian writer called Count Leo Tolstoy. He was one of the Russian famous writer at the time, and his lesson speaks about the general problems we face each and every day and how to solve out those problems. So those are the easiest ways are explained in this lesson. Let's check out what it tells in the lesson. A king has three questions and he is seeking answers to them. What are the questions? Does the king get what he wants? Read to find out. So a king has a questions. What questions? Whether he is able to get the answers for the questions, let's check out. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. Suddenly there was a king, and his mind there are some questions took place. What it tells. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. The questions were, if he knew three things, he would never fail in his life. So, what were the questions he had in the mind? The first question was, what is the right time to begin something? The second question is, who should a king listen to? The third question is, what is the most important thing for a king to do? The king, therefore, sent messengers throughout his kingdom, promising a large sum to anyone who would answer these three questions. So, the king is not getting any proper answers for his three questions. What he did, he sent messengers throughout his kingdom. Messengers means the person who carries the messenger from one place to another place. So, these messengers were sent to different places of the kingdom, promising a large sum to anyone who would answer these three questions. So, what was the prize kept for this? The person who gives the answer for these three questions. There is a promise to give a large sum. Large sum means a big amount, big money to anyone who would answer these three questions. So, who would answer these three questions, he would be getting a big amount of money from the king. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. So, when the money was announced as a prize money, many people came to the kingdom and they tried to answer all his questions, but all the questions and answers were different. The king was not happy for that. Now, let's see what were the answers given by the different people. Second paragraph. In reply to the first question, some said the king must prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. Others said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something. The king should do whatever seemed necessary at the time. Yet others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. So, what were the answers given by different people? Some of them answered that for the question, what is the right time to begin something? They said the king must prepare a timetable to find out proper time to begin anything. Others said it was impossible to decide in advance the right time to was doing something. And somebody else said that the king should do whatever seemed necessary at the time. Means at the time, at the moment, what was important that had to be done. So some others said that king should have a council of wise men, means group of wise men with him to guide him properly towards the good time. But others said that there were some things which could be urgent. Some of them said if the things are urgent, that should be attended first by the king. These things could not wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future, and only magicians could do that. The king therefore would have to go to magician. So a few of them they said that to find out the right time, it is not possible by a normal person. So king should go to a magician to find out what is the exact time. For the second question, what was the answer given by the people? Some said that the people most necessary to the king were his counselors. What is the second question? Let's see first. Who should a king listen to? Means whom you should obey. Whose words the king should listen to. For that question, some of them they said that the people most necessary to the king were his counselors. Means his ministers the king should listen to. Some people said that he should listen to the priests. Priests means the people who worship the god. Few others choose doctors. Some of them they said king should listen to the doctors all the time. And yet others said that his soldiers were the most necessary. Few of them they said that the soldiers are the important people to follow. Whatever they say, it should be followed by the king. For the third question, what is the answer given? Let's see what is the third question. What is the most important thing for a king to do? For a king, what is the most important thing to do? The answers were different for even for that question also. Let's see what were the answers. Some said attack means the king should attack the other kingdoms and to widen his kingdom. Others chose fight. Some they said that he should choose fighting, and yet others religious worship. Some of them they said that he always give importance to religious worship means god and goddesses. So the answers to his questions were so different the king was not satisfied. When these answers were given differently, king was unhappy, he was not satisfied. He decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. So, king was not happy with the answers given by his counselors and the different people. So now he had decided to go to a hermit. Hermit means a sage who lives in the forest. So he decided to go there. And the hermit was well known for his wisdom also. Now let's look at the third paragraph. The king put on ordinary clothes and went to meet the hermit. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went alone. Now, the king had decided to go to the hermit and he left the kingdom. But what were his clothes? His clothes were very simple one, ordinary clothes like a common man. And he went to meet the hermit. Before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went alone. At the distant place only, he left his horse and the servant or bodyguard there only, and he alone went to the hermit's hut. Next paragraph. As the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. So now the king had reached the hermit's hut. What is he doing there? He saw the hermit digging on the ground in front of his hut. The hermit is digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king and continued digging. He welcomed the king. He was so happy to see the king. He welcomed him, but he didn't stop working. He started digging the ground. Next paragraph. The king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. And he repeated the questions. Now, king went to the hermit where he was working and said something to hermit. What he said? I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. I request you to answer my 3 questions, he said. And the questions were repeated. The hermit listened to the king but did not speak. So, After listening to the questions by the king, hermit did not speak. He continued digging. "You are tired," said the king. "Let me take the spade and work in your place." So when he continued digging, king said something to hermit. What he said? "You are tired. Dear hermit, you are so tired. Let me take the spade and work in your place. You stop and take rest. I will dig the earth for you. And I'll take the spade and dig the earth for you." Spade means a tool to dig the earth. "Thanks," said the hermit, giving the king his spade. Now, hermit is a bit happier because his work burden is reduced. So he gave the spade to the king and he sat for relaxation. When the king had dug two beds, he stopped and repeated his question. The hermit gave no answer. Now, the king started digging the earth. After digging two beds means the holes in the earth, he stopped and repeated his questions. The king stopped his work and repeated the questions, but the hermit gave no answer. Hermit did not answer even now. Now you get some share your responses questions. Let's find out the answer for these questions. What thought came to the king? A thought to find out some answer for his questions came to the mind of the king, and he also thought that if he knew the answer for these questions, he would never fail in his life. Next question. Write the three questions for which the king wanted to have answers. The three questions were: first question, what is the right time to begin something? The second question was, who should a king listen to? Third question, what is the most important thing for a king to do? Was the king satisfied with the answers? If yes, why? If not, why? The king was not happy or satisfied with the answers given by the different people because all the answers were different one. Fourth question, who did the king decide to seek advice from? The king had decided to seek advice from a hermit. He is known for his knowledge. Now continue with the next paragraph. Read on. Paragraph number 4. 1 hour passed. Then another. The sun went down behind the trees, and at last the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, "I came to you, wise man, for answer to my questions. If you can give no answer, tell me so, and I will return home." Now 1 hour is passed, king coming to hermit. Still he could not get any answer from the sage or the hermit. The sun went down behind the trees, and at last the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, now already it is sunset, it's evening, and even the king was tired. Now king stuck the spade means he put the spade on the earth and said, "I came to you, wise man, for answer to my questions." See, wise man, hermit, I came to you to get some answer for my questions. But you are not giving any answer. If you can give no answer, tell me so. If you don't know the answer, just tell me that you don't know the answer. I will return home. I'll go back to my home. Let's see what is the answer given by the sage now. "Here comes someone running," said the hermit. The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. The king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. So now king is trying to get the answers from the hermit, but hermit did not answer. In the next paragraph, fifth paragraph, we see hermit saying something. What he is telling? "Here comes someone running." So He observed something at the distant place and he said, "Someone is coming running here." The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards him. So, what the king saw when he turned back? He saw a bearded man. There's a man whose face was covered with a beard, and he came running. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. So the unknown man held his hands against his stomach, and there was a blood flow from that area, that place. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell down to the ground. So the man came running and he fell down near the king because his stomach is full of blood. He fainted means he became unconscious. The king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. Now king and hermit came running to the man and they removed the clothes of the man. Then they found that a big wound. Wound means there was a hurt on the body in his stomach. So it was found by these two people. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief. Now king washed that wound and covered with the handkerchief. But the blood would not stop flowing. Even though it was dressed, still blood kept flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. So king was too much worried and he went on redressing the wound. Finally, the blood has stopped. Now, let's move on to the next paragraph. The man closed his eyes and lay quiet. The king, tired by his walk and the work he had done, lay down on the floor and slept through the night. When he woke up, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. So here, let's see what the paragraph tells. The man closed his eyes and lay quiet. So the wounded man lay down and closed his eyes. The king, tired by his walk and the work he had done, lay down on the floor and slept through the night. Even the king was so tired. He walked whole day and he had done some work at the hermit's place and even he treated the patient. So he was so tired, even he lay down on the floor and slept through the night. Even he also slept off. When he woke up, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was. So in the morning when he woke up, in the beginning itself he could not understand where he was. So after some time he remembered that he came to hermit's place. Also, who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. The man who got wounded. Already he is lying next to the bed of the king, and it took much time to understand for the king that who was the person. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. 7. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice when he saw that the king was awake. So now even the bearded man is trying to open his eyes. And as soon as he saw king being awake, he said something. What he said? "Please forgive me." Forgive means excuse me, like, "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. But king is telling, "Why are you saying forgive me like? Because I don't know who are you. For the first time seeing you. And you say that I should forgive you. For what I should forgive you?" Next paragraph. "You do not know, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you, because you put my brother to death and seized my property. I had made up my mind to kill you on your way home, but the day passed and you did not return. So I left my hiding place and I came upon your bodyguard, who recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from him, but I should have died if you had not dressed my wounds. I wished to kill you, and you have saved my life. Now, if I live, I will serve you as your most faithful servant." Now, The unknown person, the wounded person, is explaining something to the king. What he's trying to explain? He's telling that you don't know me, but I know you. That means king doesn't know the wounded person, but that wounded person knows the king. I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you because you put my brother to death and seized my property. I am an enemy for you. Why I am an enemy for you? Because I have taken a revenge. I have taken a oath to revenge on you. Why should I revenge on you? Because you put my brother to death and seized my property. While fighting, you killed my brother and seized all my property. I had made up my mind to kill you on your way home. So I had decided to kill you when you were getting back to home. But the day passed and you did not return. But morning you came, but you didn't come back. So I left my hiding place and I came upon your bodyguard. So I came upon your bodyguard. That means I attacked your bodyguard who was staying behind, who recognized me and wounded me. But he recognized me. Recognized me? He recognized me as your enemy and he wounded me. He attacked me and wounded me. So I escaped from him, but I should have died if you had not dressed my wounds. Somehow I escaped from his attack, but if you had not dressed my wounds, I would have died by this time. I wished to kill you, and you have saved my life. My wish was to kill you, but you saved my life. What a different thing it is. What a peculiar thing it is. Because I wanted to kill you, but you saved me. Now, if I live, I will serve you as your most faithful servant. Now I have changed my mind since you saved my life. What I decided is I decided to save you as a servant, a faithful servant.